In the storied history of college football, there are teams that win championships, and then there are teams that change the game forever. The 1986 Miami Hurricanes managed to pull one of those two things off, and it wasn't a championship win. With their flashy play, off-the-chart swagger, and an unshakable belief that they were the best to ever do it, they became the team everybody loved to hate. Fans booed them, the media scrutinized them, but deep down, even their harshest critics knew they were watching greatness. This is the story of the most hated team in college football history. Before we dive into the legacy of this unforgettable squad, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We bring you the best stories in college football. Now, let's talk about how Miami became the bad boys of college football. To understand why the 1986 Hurricanes were so hated, you first need to understand how they became so good. The story starts with head coach Jimmy Johnson, who took over the team in 1984. Miami had just come off a shocking national championship under Howard Schnellenberger in 1983. Expectations were sky high. Johnson didn't just meet them, he obliterated them. By 1986, he had built a team that was fast, physical, and fueled by swagger. The Hurricanes ensured they beat teams and also embarrassed them. They cruised to an 11-0 regular season record, outscoring opponents by nearly 300 points.
Spins away, gets out beyond the 15-yard line.
Quarterback Vinny Testaverde led a high-octane offense, throwing for 2,557 yards and 26 touchdowns. Their defense, known for its speed and ferocity, suffocated opponents. The U wasn't just winning, they were dominating and doing it with some style that made traditional college football purists absolutely livid. The 1986 Hurricanes didn't hide who they were. They trash-talked before, during, and after games. They celebrated touchdowns with elaborate dances. They strutted off the field like rock stars, and they did it all while looking like no other team in the country. They had baggy jerseys, untucked shirts, and custom accessories that pushed the limits of NCAA uniform rules. This wasn't just football, it was a performance. The team's swagger wasn't just surface level either, it was a cultural shift, one rooted in the confidence of inner-city Miami, where many of the players had grown up. They brought their background and personality to the field unapologetically. They weren't interested in fitting the mold. They were interested in winning and letting you know about it every step of the way.
But the sun-kissed Fiesta Bowl, anxious to increase its own prestige, could. So they sweetened the pot for Penn State and Miami.
Critics, especially in the media, didn't hold back. Sports columnists called them classless, thugs, and a disgrace to the game. Coaches around the country accused them of lacking discipline, but to Miami, that criticism was fuel. They knew that no matter what they did, they weren't going to be accepted by the college football establishment. So they leaned into the villain role even harder, and it worked. Everything came to a head on January 2nd, 1987, the Fiesta Bowl. The undefeated Hurricanes were matched up against another unbeaten team, Penn State. It was supposed to be the biggest game of the decade, and in many ways, it was, but not for the reasons people expected. Miami arrived in Tempe, Arizona, already the center of attention. Their players stepped off the plane in military-style fatigues, a not-so-subtle message that they were coming to war. Penn State, by contrast, wore suits. The stage was set, brashness versus tradition. In the days leading up to the game, the media couldn't get enough. The Hurricanes openly mocked Penn State in interviews. Rumors spread that Miami players were disruptive at bowl events and refused to socialize with their opponents. They were painted as everything wrong with modern football. But here's the twist: Miami lost. Despite outgaining Penn State by more than 300 yards, the Hurricanes committed 5 interceptions. This was Vinny Testaverde's worst performance of the season. The final score? 14-10, Penn State. Miami's perfect season was over. To their critics, it was vindication. The bad boys had finally been humbled. Headlines the next day weren't about Penn State's grit, they were about Miami's downfall. To many, it felt like justice. But if you thought the Hurricanes were going to fade away quietly after that, you didn't know Miami. Even in defeat, the '86 Canes left a permanent mark on college football. They showed the world that you didn't have to play by the old rules to dominate. That confidence wasn't arrogance if you could back it up. That football could be cultural, expressive, and unapologetically loud. Recruiting changed after '86. Coaches across the country realized they needed speed, swagger, and players who could compete with Miami's raw energy. Southern schools started tapping deeper into urban areas for talent. Offenses evolved to become more explosive. Defenses were built for speed, not just size. The NCAA also took notice. In the years that followed, rules began to tighten, especially around celebration penalties, uniform standards, and sideline conduct. It was clear the Canes had scared the establishment enough to trigger a response. But perhaps their biggest impact was cultural. The 1986 Miami Hurricanes made it cool to be hated as long as you were winning. They gave college football an edge, a swagger, and an electricity that couldn't be manufactured. They brought hip-hop energy into a sport that had long clung to country club traditions.
Certainly looks like an onside. Maybe he's going to pop it up. No, they go the onside. They got a chance. They got it. Miami got the ball.
They established their feet on the sand of time by winning games, and they forced the sport to evolve. Ask any football fan today about the 1986 Hurricanes, and you'll probably get one of two responses. They were the most disgraceful team ever, or they were the realest team in college football history. And the truth? They were both. They walked the line between brilliance and recklessness. They changed how teams dressed, talked, played, and marketed themselves. And love them or hate them, they forced everyone, fans, coaches, media, and even the NCAA, to pay attention. Vinny Testaverde went on to win the Heisman Trophy that season, despite the Fiesta Bowl meltdown. Several players from that team would go on to have successful NFL careers. But more than that, they left behind a blueprint for swagger-driven success that future Miami teams and other powerhouse programs would try to emulate for decades. It's why the U became more than just a nickname, it became a brand. In 1986, that was the year the brand exploded. The 1986 Miami Hurricanes were a perfect blend of greatness in football and a cultural phenomenon. They weren't afraid to be hated because they knew exactly who they were. They didn't play by the rules. Instead, they made new ones. And whether you were booing them from the stands or secretly wishing your team had the same fire, they made you feel something. And that, my friends, is what legends do. If you enjoyed this breakdown of one of the most controversial teams in college football history, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button. Got another wild team or player you want us to cover? Drop it in the comments. Until next time, stay loud, stay proud. Thanks for watching.